Hey everyone, Quentin Figueroa here with Slayermint.com, and I wanted to talk to you about how libertarian socialism is an oxymoron and a complete failure. Okay, so first let's define things, right? So let's define libertarian socialism. This is taken from Wikipedia, and it says libertarian socialism, sometimes called social anarchism, left libertarianism, and socialist libertarianism, is a group of anti-authoritarian political philosophies inside the socialist movement that rejects socialism as centralized state ownership and control of the economy, as well as the state itself. It criticizes wage-labor relationships within the workplace, instead emphasizing workers' self-management of the workplace, and decentralized structures of political organization, asserting that a society based on freedom and justice can be achieved through abolishing authoritarian institutions that control certain means of production and subordinate the majority to an owning class or political and economic elite. Not done. Libertarian socialists advocate for decentralized structures based on direct democracy and federal or confederal associations such as libertarian municipalism, citizen assemblies, trade unions, and workers' councils. All of this is generally done within a general call for libertarian and voluntary human relationships through the identification, criticism, and practical dismantling of illegitimate authority in all aspects of human life. Okay, so that is kind of an overview of libertarian socialism. So you can see here a few things. You have kind of the anti-state portion of it, which would be kind of the libertarian part, I guess, right? So it's anti-state, anti-authoritarian, that kind of thing. So it's kind of like anarchist in that way. You have the wage-labor relationships within the workplace, so kind of the wage slavery aspect where, you know, they're not happy about that kind of thing. And then what else? Decentralized, controlled, direct democracy, that kind of thing. So kind of more a grassroots, smaller type of way to choose how to manage things rather than some huge centralized authoritarian government type thing, right? So that's kind of the social aspect, is the direct democracy and kind of that. So let's define libertarian, right? And yeah, so basically libertarian. An adherent of libertarianism, a person who advocates civil liberty, a person who believes in the doctrine of free will. And I know there is a lot more kind of definitions for that, and I know that's kind of one of the things libertarian socialists talk about, is kind of how the term libertarian, when we hear it, we normally think kind of right-wing and that kind of thing, when in reality they say libertarian is more just kind of anti-state. It's more just kind of a liberty type thing, but it doesn't have to do necessarily with kind of right-wing, which is most libertarians these days. So the US kind of has like a different take on it, I guess, kind of like the word liberal. Okay, so then you got socialism. Socialism is a political and economic theory of social organization that advocates that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned and regulated by the community as a whole. So that is definitely the straight, pretty much definition they're using. I know they say most people get the word socialism mixed up by meaning state, and I'd agree that a lot of people do get that mixed up, and that's kind of more communism, where socialism is just kind of more the people representing themselves. So that's kind of what they're using here. So that is the socialism definition. Another one, policy or practice based on the political and economic theory of socialism. So that's a pointless definition. So anyway, that should give you kind of a foundation understanding of what libertarian socialism is all about. Basically, I'd say it's anti-state socialism. So it's socialism without some type of centralized control, right? But they do believe in socialism over free markets. That's kind of the big difference. And they want to do socialism in a non-governmental way, in a more voluntary type way, which is respectable, but it's also an oxymoron. Because socialism, by the way it actually works, takes away your freedom. So if you want to have maximum freedom, which is a libertarian type thing, right? You want to have liberty, free will, choice. You can't have that with socialism, or at least you can't have it to the degree that you can with something else like a free market. So if you're going to have socialism, that requires somebody else to coerce another person. And when you coerce somebody, you're taking away their choices or their free will. You're acting on them without them allowing you into it. So a free market system does not tell other people that they need to do something or they need to give you their resources or they're managing something incorrectly. A socialist system does do that. And that's why it's an oxymoron to call it libertarian socialism, because you can't have true libertarianism or free will or liberty when you have socialism, because exactly what I said. So that's a problem. And that's why it's an oxymoron. Now let's talk about why it's a complete failure. So there's two main kind of points to libertarian socialism. The wage slavery piece, right? And then you have kind of the equality and management of resources piece. And it's kind of similar type things. But let's talk about wage slavery, right? So libertarian socialists are very upset about the way that people can make a profit and kind of, they say, exploit workers, right? They liken a lot of people working for a company to that relationship of a slave person, where the corporation basically somehow magically got put in that position to where they can hire people, and now they're able to exploit these people because these people who work at this, say, factory or whatever, they are unable to, they're basically being used by this person, this capitalist, who magically got the factory and is paying them. So for whatever reason, these people are unable to start their own factory because fill in the blank. There's no reason why. They could start their own factory, but they don't. They'd rather complain to the person who did start the factory, who did take the risk, who did get, you know, whatever reason any business owner goes through in starting a company. It's going to be hard and challenging, which is why most people don't do it. And then the people who don't do it and then work for them, who complain to them saying that they're treating them unfairly when they're voluntarily choosing to work there, it's a pretty absurd way to look at it. And that is what libertarian socialists do. That is what socialists do. And that is why it's a complete failure. So socialism doesn't create wealth the way that a free market system does. So if you want to have a better standard of living, you want less poor people, if you actually care about poor people and you want them to have more freedom, you want them to have more choice, you want society in general to be better, you can't support socialism because you are creating an economic system. You're just creating a societal system that is worse for doing that than something obvious like a free market. So the wage slavery argument is completely absurd and it's irrational, because any wage slave is choosing to be a wage slave. You could say that the capitalist has a monopoly on the resources. No, they don't, because before the capitalist got the resources, they had to find them, they had to turn it in and transform it into something that people viewed valuable, and any person in society, in the world, can do the exact same thing. Period. Nobody is keeping you from going out, finding your own resources, figuring out a way to transform those into something useful for society, and doing it. And you don't have to hire people if you don't want to. You could do it all yourself, and you could give it away if you want. Nobody cares. But you can't be mad at somebody who does that and then chooses to allow somebody like you to work for them, and then makes people happy by giving them those resources, by selling them to those people, because those people work for their money and they want to exchange their labor and the money for the resources, for, say, oil or for water or for whatever it is. They want to exchange their labor for that because it's beneficial for them and it's useful. And that's the way a market works, and that's why free markets are much better than socialism, because you are allowing resources to be allocated the way people want them to be. You're not trying to tell people what they can or can't do, or you're not complaining at people for starting a business and then making money, right? So another thing they get mad about is profit. So it's bad for a corporation to make a profit, but a profit isn't bad at all. A profit is it's when you are doing something that is valuable and you have like a surplus left over because you're doing something so well. It's like, it's not bad to do something so well to where there's a surplus. There's a lot of ways to look at it. If you take a risk in a business, that profit is the way that risk later pays off. So when you start a business you might be going into debt, you might be, doing lots of things that a lot of people don't do, like libertarian socialists, and they might complain. Meanwhile, you're not complaining, you're taking action, and you're taking a huge risk. And by taking that risk and putting in the thought to make it happen, figuring out the best way to innovate or create it in a way that it is profitable and still valuable to the consumer to buy it, that profit is the difference of the profit is kind of the result of doing that. It's what that innovation created, and it's kind of that short segment of where you have over delivered to a demand. And eventually other people are going to see your profit, and other corporations are going to come in and start doing the same thing, and your profit's going to diminish, and now the standard of living at everybody's better, your profits are down, you're going to need to now find something else if you want to find like another way to make a profit or a good amount of money or that kind of thing. And that's kind of how free markets work. So profit's not bad. That's like somebody going out and creating a song, and they give it away on the internet for free, and everybody likes the song, and that is, in a way, it's not a financial profit, but they're getting kind of that energy of people in a way that could be defined similarly to a profit. They have kind of that surplus of where they did something above and beyond and so valuable and so good in that particular song that everybody is giving them that extra energy. So it's not profit they're giving them, but they're giving them their energy, and they're giving them their kind of time, which is not much different than a profit. It's just like, it's just absurd the way these people are not happy about a profit when it's just like kind of a, it's not even necessarily like defined correctly, or it's not even looked at in a way of what actually is going on. It's more than just the money, right? And it's more than just somebody making extra money. And yeah, so wage slavery and that whole thing it's just like a bunch of little children that are not happy that they have to work, and that the world doesn't make them work, but that they can't just sit around and do nothing all day. And they can't have a society that gives them everything they need, and that kind of thing. It's like, yeah, maybe one day we'll get there where technology can run our lives and that kind of thing, kind of like what the Zeitgeist movement talks about. But I highly doubt it, and you're still going to have problems even if you are there with technology, because you still have to manage kind of resources. You have to manage the price of certain things. You have to manage the supply and demand of things. You have to manage kind of the whole price discovery mechanism is hard to do in a socialist way. And you're still going to run into those problems, and people that are into libertarian socialism are just upset that people can be wealthy when, why is that a problem if somebody chooses to be wealthy when they're not hurting people, they're actually serving people, like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and all these people who make my life better, your life better, because they're doing things that are valuable, and why is that bad? Even oil companies that do oil, we all use oil. The freaking lights we have, the energy we have, the food we have, all comes from oil. So why is that bad? Should we go back to living like cave people? I don't really want to, but maybe you do. And if you do, I support that. I'm fine with libertarian socialists being libertarian socialists. Just don't tell me what I need to do, right? I can live in a free market society my way, and I'm totally cool with libertarian socialists living their way. The problem is when they tell me how to live. I'm not telling anyone else how to live. Why should they tell me how to live? Okay, so let's talk about kind of this land equality people. The equality thing. Man, I'm kind of sweating. Got to cool off a little bit. Okay. Whew. Okay, so another kind of big problem is the resource management part, which is kind of like land use, management of resources like oil and things like this, things that you could call scarce, right? And they kind of, so libertarian socialists want what it says in Wikipedia, direct democracy. So rather than having kind of this representative democracy like America and a lot of democracies, where you have kind of a government state that is like authoritarian and kind of people have representatives, they'd rather just direct democracy where each people kind of vote directly. You could do it through the internet, stuff like this. It'd be really easy to do in this more technological era, but it's still not really the best way to do it. We'll talk about that. So the equality piece. So people are mad that like you can go and you can go and have land in like a free market and then start using that land in the way that you want, and then maybe like a future generation can't have that land, right? So if I were to go discover a place that had oil, and then I went and started producing oil, and then a future generation comes along and now they can't produce oil there because I'm producing oil there. And that is a great inequality with libertarian socialism, but it's not, because they could go find oil somewhere else. And it's not, first of all, oil wasn't even a big deal until like 200 years ago when they actually found a use for it. Before that, it wasn't even really useful, and there wasn't a use. And probably in like 50 years or so, oil's not going to be that useful because we're going to probably have more technological ways of doing energy, right? So it's kind of funny how whatever is kind of the resource of the time is seen as being able to be monopolized, and that's bad, yet it's only going to last for a little while. It's never fully monopolized anyway. And what are you even arguing? What are you talking about, right? But yeah, so these people who own like a resource, they had to turn that resource into something valuable for people. And it's not like they land on a resource and the resource magically turns into something that people can immediately use and they can immediately make money on. You have to transform, you have to first find the resource, which costs money and time and energy, and it's hard, which a lot of libertarian socialism not so into doing. Then you have to transform that resource into something that can be usable. You have to make sure that it's still viable and the market still needs it and there's not something better. You have to make sure that just a lot of different things. It's not so easy as just, I found a resource, I'm going to have that to infinity and beyond, and I'm always going to be rich. That's not how markets work. That's not how resources work. That's not how logic works. So that's a problem. And again, well, not again, but back to the equality piece, right? So there's a few ways to look at it. If you really want people to all be equal as far as resources go, then everybody would have to own an equal share of every possible resource, every piece of land, everything in the world. And that just doesn't make sense. That's not going to happen. And that's a stupid way to do it, because people who don't know anything about or want to know anything about a certain resource or land or whatever, they're going to be part owner, or they're going to be part of it. And why do you want them? Why should they be involved if they don't even want to be involved or don't know anything about it? You can't know everything about everything. You can't know a little bit about everything. You should have specialized people who care about something and are passionate, happy about it, enjoy doing it. They should be the ones doing that thing. So why would you want to have it? Well, first of all, to have equality, everyone would have to be part, which doesn't make sense. That's stupid. The reverse, which makes sense to me, is to have it where each individual or entity can own something privately, right? That makes sense, but that is not good for libertarian socialists either. So they kind of want this. Okay, so yeah, so right here at the top, right, you got pure equality where everyone owns everything, equal percentage and that kind of thing. How you even define that or measure it or whatever, it's stupid, you can't, but who cares? That's that. So nobody really likes this, even though that is the only way to have true equality. Down here, you have kind of the private way, right, where you have just like a private owner and that type of thing, which libertarian socialism not happy about, I'm happy about. Okay, and then, so they want something in the middle here where you have basically, it can't be so big that you have a state, right? So maybe here, a little bit too big, this is state, you can't have that. Down here, getting too close to capitalism, can't have that. There we go. So some sweet spot here where you kind of have a direct democracy, non-authoritarian, communal type way here. This is right. But how you would even define or measure that gets a little tricky too. And now you're dealing with people, and now you're dealing with the same problems you're dealing with about right here. It's just, it's kind of silly, and it's kid stuff. Okay, so that's weird. It's hard to manage something with direct democracy. I mean, democracy is a worse way of measuring what people want than their money, than their energy, than what they're willing to spend time on, and then exchange that time for something, right? That's kind of the way to measure something. So it's like the saying, put your money where your mouth is. That saying exists because people talk a big game, but they don't act a big game. And putting your money where your mouth is means that you are willing to invest what you work so hard, what you put your energy into, to get that money or that resource, whatever money's representing. But to get that energy, you put time and effort into it. And then to put that effort into something, that represents what you really want. And socialism doesn't do that. They have it where you just say what you want and you pay lip service to something rather than actually putting your money where your mouth is. And the best democracy, like more direct than direct democracy, is just straight buying what you want. So if you want direct democracy, just let people buy and exchange as they want. That is more representative of what an individual wants than what they say they want or pay lip service to. It's pretty obvious, but it's not so obvious if you enjoy, socialistic thinking. Okay, so yeah, the libertarian socialists are not happy that people have property or this kind of thing, or that people are wealthy and some aren't, right? Kind of the equality thing I was talking about. The thing is, the normal state for people is to be poor. People are born poor, especially like up until about 300 years ago, like 99% of people, you're going to be born dirt poor. So you're poor. That's like the normal state of things. And then you're poor, and then you figure out, how to take care of yourself, how to move on. But now we do have some people that are born wealthy. And and what we do is we attack people that are wealthy rather than asking, why are they wealthy? What creates wealth? Why do we have people that are born wealthy now when it's normal to be born poor? We were born poor for so long, but now we're born wealthy. We're born wealthy through free markets because free markets create wealth. They create innovation. You have these different market forces and incentives that make people raise the standard of living. And rather than focusing on how do we make people born wealthy, we instead say, that's bad. You can't be born wealthy. Let's have everybody born equal. Let's have everyone equally poor rather than more like this, right? Middle range and wealthy. We don't want that. We want everybody poor because that's what socialism is. And, we could explain that, but it's a different topic. People are born poor. You raise that standard of living not through socialism. Socialism is a much worse way to basically organize humans and organize creativity and organize innovation in a way that can improve the standard of living of people. It's been blatantly seen with America how well capitalism is at raising the standard of living. We've seen in other countries like South Korea and Singapore and Hong Kong and other capitalist type places that free markets absolutely kick ass and they're really good at making your life better. Yet we want to instead attack them because people are better because of it, and we want to instead have socialism where everybody is equally poor. Like, it's weird. It's really weird. I don't get it. I guess I kind of get it if like you were 3 years old, but I don't get it. Okay, so yeah, and then just the thing that, like I was saying earlier, so libertarian socialism, it's tricky because everybody kind of has to be on page with it, which I'm cool. If people wanted to be libertarian socialists and do it kind of in their own way and let me do my thing, I don't freaking care. That's awesome. I think it's fine. And I do respect that they are against the state, but they're still for socialism, which is going to have the initiation of force, which is kind of problematic. If they're okay with that, whatever. But it's going to have problems. And the problem is in a free market system, I don't care what other people do. In a libertarian socialist system, they do. And that's a problem. Because when you care what other people are doing, you are going to an extent, have to manage them or put everybody together in a way, like direct democracy or whatever. You're going to have to put people together where you have to care what they do because you have to force them to all think a certain way in order to have your system work the way you want it to. And anybody who knows anything about history knows that knows anything about a day in the life of a human knows that people are corruptible and people are full of shit. They're going to do what they want. They're going to scam you. They're going to do anything they can to hurt you. Not everybody, and a lot of people are actually awesome. But people do really kind of mean things and, you know, whatever. But people are corruptible. Bad stuff's going to happen. So why would you kind of depend on a system which is already worse, like logically and everything, economically? But then why would you then think that we can have it to where we can manage these people and they're not going to overstep their boundaries or anything like this? It's silly. We should assume that bad stuff's going to happen, and how can we minimize that damage on ourselves? And the way you minimize that damage is through free markets, through capitalism, through private property. So that is my thing. Through free markets, I can do what I want, you can do what you want, and we don't have a problem. With socialism, I can't do what I want, and you have a problem with that. And I have a problem with that. So that is why, so that is, for the reasons I've talked about, that's why libertarian socialism is a complete failure. Number of reasons. It doesn't make people more equal. It doesn't raise the standard of living of people. It makes people more poor, which is pretty evil. I'm not in favor of poor people, but maybe they are. You have it to where people don't have as much freedom or choice, and that's kind of where it's an oxymoron, because you need choice to have liberty. You need freedom to have liberty, and you can't have liberty, which is libertarian, if you are taking away choice through socialism by telling people what to do. So it's just, the whole thing is like, it's kid stuff, and I don't want to be a kid anymore. So let's start acting like adults and having adult systems like free markets and private property, everyone. So yeah, thank you very much for listening, and have a great day.